Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I am doing a top 5 seats that the Democrats are most likely to flip in the 2026 governor elections. So in this video I'm only going to be focusing on the states currently held by Republicans that Democrats are looking to flip from red to blue for 2026. So if you're looking for or me to talk about Arizona or Kansas or Wisconsin or Michigan, that won't be in this video. That will be in my next video, which is going to be on Democratic states that Republicans can flip. So this is just focusing on the red states. With that said, the first state that I think the Democrats are most likely to flip from red to blue and win to their side in 2026 is the state of Georgia. So Georgia, this governor's race is a very interesting one in the fact that this is an open race on both the Republican and Democratic sides and is shaping up to be a very competitive race. So Georgia in 2022 voted for the Republican governor Brian Kemp by a margin of 7.5%. Overall, that's considered a likely Republican margin. But 4 years prior to that, in 2018, the last time Georgia had an open race for governor, Brian Kemp, the then Secretary of State, defeated Stacey Abrams by only 1.4% in that very close race. And if you had to bet right now if the 2026 midterms will be closer to 2018 or 2022, given that it was President Trump midterm in 2018, we're probably going to see a closer to 2018 type of election environment. So Georgia's shaping up to be very, very close for 2026. Now, on the Republican side of things, it's a primary right now that's very competitive and very wide open with a lot of very big names running. Chris Carr, the Attorney General of Georgia, is running. Rick Jackson, a healthcare executive who is running, who has really upended this race and seems to be the leader right now. Burt Jones, the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, who has the endorsement of Donald Trump. And Brad Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, who is definitely a longtime critic of Donald Trump, is running as well. As for the polling on this race, just to show you where it's at right now, it's very close, but Rick Jackson actually seems in the most recent poll to have a lead of roughly about 15 points. Though the Emerson College poll before that, from February 28th to March 2nd, shows essentially a tied race between Burt Jones and Rick Jackson, with still about 38% of the vote undecided. On the Democratic side, a lot of Democrats are running. The most notable Democrat right now is the former mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. When you look at the early polling thus far, she has a very large lead over the rest of the Democratic candidates running, and she is the odds-on favorite to be the Democratic nominee. As for the general election, 3 political prediction websites, Cook Political Report, Sabado Crystal Ball, and Race to the White House, have the race listed as a toss-up. The Inside Elections has it listed as tilt for the Republicans right now. And I'm using a new website that I've not used in the past video. This is Race to the White House, and their current rankings, which they have it as a toss-up as well. In their current rankings, though, for a toss-up, they currently have Keisha Lance Bottoms at 58.8% chance to win. Rick Jackson has the Republican 41.2% chance to win. So in their rankings for prediction overall, they have the race as Keisha Lance Bottoms at Democrat +3. So the way to interpret this data is that in their simulations, roughly Keisha Lance Bottoms wins about 58.8% of the time. Rick Jackson wins about 41.2% of the time. And Keisha Lance Bottoms overall is projected to win by about 3 points at the general election level. So Georgia is shaping up to be a very close governor's race for 2026. And if you're looking at the ones that could go from red to blue, I think Georgia is the first one the Democrats are looking at as a potential flip for 2026. So that's the state of Georgia. The next governor's race that I am keeping an eye on as a possible flip from red to blue would be the state of Nevada. Now, Nevada is also a very interesting governor's race because this one was very, very close in 2024. This is Republican Governor Joe Lombardo, who, as I mentioned, won for the first time in 2024, and he did so by taking down the Democratic incumbent governor at the time, Steve Sisolak. Now, Lombardo won by 1.5%, Sisolak got 47.3%, Lombardo 48.8%, a Libertarian or third-party candidate, got 1.46%. Also, the none of the above candidates or none of the candidates option in Nevada got 1.46%, and that has played a very important role in past elections as well. You can look at the Senate race, for instance, in 2024. Jackie Rosen got 47.87, Sam Brown, the Republican, got 46.2, and none of these candidates got 3.03. So that none of those candidates option could play a very important role for 2026 if the Democrats are looking to flip this race. As for the primaries, it's actually pretty much locked up. We know Joe Lombardo is going to be the Republican nominee. On the Democratic side, there are a bunch of Democrats running. The most notable Democrat running is Aaron Ford, the Nevada Attorney General, and this is going to be the general election matchup. As for the rankings, 2 out of the 4, Cook Politico and Race to the White House, have it as toss-up. Inside Elections and Sablo Crystal Ball have it tilt and lean Republican. The early polling data in this one so far for the general election shows Lombardo with the lead over Aaron Ford of 2.6% for Race to the White House, 0.5% for Real Clear Politics. Average of the two, 1.5% lead for Lombardo, with still roughly about 19.5% undecided. So it's a very small lead for Lombardo right now, with still roughly about 20% of the vote left to go on that one. And again, as I showed you, that 1.5% lead for Lombardo is right in line with what Lombardo won by last time in 2022. As for the Race to the White House rankings, they have it listed right now. Lombardo is favored to win 63.5%, Aaron Ford 36.5%. With their overall projection margin, Lombardo is favored to win by around 3 points. So it's listed as toss-up for their rankings as well. It's certainly going to be very close. Lombardo, I do think, has a slight edge right now, but if 2026, which I should mention, also haven't showed this yet for this video, the current generic ballot for 2026 is Democrat plus 3.5 right now on the Decision Desk HQ polling average. If that margin gets any larger and you get into maybe like a 5 to 6 point range for the Democrats, that could trigger a very big wave type of election for the Democrats that maybe winning a state like Nevada becomes a lot more of a realistic possibility. So Nevada is a toss-up. It's super close. The Democrats can certainly win that, but coupled with a bigger Democratic wave than the polls currently predict, plus none of those candidates option, could be a scenario where the Democrat Aaron Ford gets like 48.5%, Joe Lombardo maybe gets 48 to 47.5%, and then none of these candidates gets like 1 to 2%. That could open up the possibility for Nevada to flip from red to blue and give the Democrats a flip in this race. So Georgia and Nevada are the top 2 states I have right now as going from red to blue. The next state that I think maybe a little bit of a surprise that this one is number 3, but the next one I have is the state of Ohio. Now, Ohio is interesting due to the fact that in 2022, the Republican governor, Mike DeWine, won by 25 points, a safe Republican margin. But the governor's race before that in 2018 was a lot more competitive. Mike DeWine defeated the Democrat Richard Cordray by only 3.7%, a lean Republican margin in a Trump Democratic midterm. So Ohio showed not in 2022, but in 2018, it can be very close. Now, what's important for 2026 is that it's an open race, and the leading Republican candidate is Republican Vivek Ramaswamy. He is going to be the Republican nominee once the primary takes place. On the Democratic side, Amy Acton, the former director of the Ohio Department of Health, is the only Democrat in the race right now. She will be the Democrat candidate. Now, this general election is very interesting because the Race to the White House average has it, or prediction has it as toss-up, lean Republican for Sablo Crystal Ball and Cook Political Report, and Inside Elections has it as likely Republican. But the polling data thus far has shown that Amy Acton is the one currently leading in this race thus far. 270 to win has Acton up by a whopping 5.1%. Decision Desk HQ has Acton leading by 0.9%, and Race to the White House has Amy Acton up 3.1%. Real Clear Politics has Ramaswamy up 0.4%, an average of 2.3% lead for Acton over Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, I do need to caution the fact, including very importantly the December Emerson poll, which is the most well-known, I would say, of these pollsters, along with Quanta's Insights, showing Acton at 46 to 45 in both their polls. Now, it's very important to note what the numbers are, that Acton at 46%, Ramaswamy at 45%, there's still a lot of undecided vote left out there. For instance, the polling average, roughly 6.3% of voters are still undecided or other, or not saying who they are supporting. And given Ohio's election history, it's very possible they all ultimately break for Vivek Ramaswamy and he ends up winning. That wouldn't really be too much of a surprise when you look at the Senate race, for instance, in 2024. Bernie Moreno got about 50.1% at 3.6% lead. J.D. Vance in 2022 won the Senate race by 53.03%. So it is possible on election night, just to preface this, that everything sort of breaks Ramaswamy's way and he ends up winning by a very close result. And especially the Race to White House average currently has that happening, with Ramaswamy favored to win 62.7% of the time, to Amy Acton's 37.3%, so it is a toss-up, but they're projecting Ramaswamy to win by 3.4%. Now, I do ultimately, in my own predictions, think that Vivek Ramaswamy does end up winning by around a similar margin to that, 3% or so. But if the Democrats are going to be flipping a governor's race from red to blue, I think Ohio with Amy Acton and Vivek Ramaswamy is actually a very good potential pickup opportunity for Democrats, as Vivek Ramaswamy does not seem to be as popular and getting the same amount of support of Republicans in the state of Ohio. For instance, he's running very similarly to Bernie Moreno did in the 2024 Senate race in the early polling thus far. But in this race, it's an open race. It's a governor's race. Governor's races are typically across the country more open to flipping and voting for the party that they would not vote for at the presidential level. For some reason, governor's races are a lot less partisan than presidential and Senate races. For instance, you'll probably never see a Republican senator out of Massachusetts, but you may see a Republican governor. Ohio is a state that I don't think would elect a Democrat for president, for instance, in 2028, but in 2026, a potential Democratic flip for governor, at very least in this scenario, could potentially happen, and I would put Ohio as the third most likely at this current point in time. The next state, number 4, that the Democrats could potentially flip, is becoming more and more of a possibility, is the state of Iowa. Now, this is an interesting race as well, because the Democrats, I think the main reason that they are in this race right now is the Democrats have really hit a home run with their respective candidate, and that is Iowa Auditor Rob Sand, who's currently the only Democratic statewide elected candidate as of right now, though after 2026, it's looking like that's certainly going to change. Now, the Republican governor of Iowa, Kim Reynolds, has decided not to run for re-election in 2026, even though she was eligible to seek a third term if she wanted to. Now, Iowa in 2022, Kim Reynolds won it by 18.5%, a safe Republican margin. But in 2018, Reynolds only won the first time by 2.7%, again showing in the Trump midterm that a very competitive governor's race in Iowa is possible. There have also been a lot of reports saying that the tariffs that President Trump enacted in his first year in office have really hurt a lot of Iowans in Iowa more than a lot of other states, which is potentially making this race more competitive than it otherwise would have been had those tariffs not taken effect. Now, the Republican leading candidate right now is U.S. Representative from the 4th District, Randy Feenstra. This is one of 4 House districts in Iowa, and Feenstra's 4th District, I believe, is the most safe Republican of all the 4 districts in the state, so that will remain red at the House level, but he'll win the Republican primary and become the general election matchup of Feenstra versus Sand. There hasn't been a ton of polling data in this race as of yet, but Rob Sand, in the one poll that's been done from Z/A Research, has Rob Sand leading 45% to Feenstra's 43%, with 12% undecided. The current political prediction websites, Cook Politico and Race to the White House, have a toss-up. Inside Elections, Saddle Crystal Ball have it lean for the Republicans. For the Race to the White House one, it has Iowa at 58.4% of the time Rob Sand wins, 41.6% Randy Feenstra wins, with an overall projection of Rob Sand at Democrat plus 2.9. So almost close. It's toss-up for a reason. It's very, very close. Almost an even split of simulations have Rob Sand and Randy Feenstra winning, and a Democrat plus 2.9%. It's really close. Iowa's an interesting state because it's been likely Republican at the presidential and Senate level for really since Donald Trump became the Republican nominee in 2016, and it's gone that way ever since. But 2026 is an interesting election, again, giving the possible Democratic environment for 2026 if the Democrats do very well and have a very big wave type of election, coupled with Rob Sand being a very strong candidate for Iowa, probably the strongest Democratic candidate the Democrats could run. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility we see Iowa go Democratic and flip from red to blue on election night in 2026. And it's not, what's funny is it's not even this race, I think, is about Randy Feenstra being a bad candidate. I think it's more about Rob Sand being a very good candidate and the tariffs that President Trump put in hurting a lot of Iowans, opening up the door for the possibility of a very close governor's race that Democrats may be able to eke out a narrow victory. I don't know if Rob Sand, in my own rankings today, would be the favorite, but in terms of which governor's races could flip from red to blue, I think Iowa has to be number 4, if not even maybe number 3 on this list. So those are 4 governor's races that I think are going to, or that could flip from red to blue. Number 5 is interesting because there's a few potential possibilities that I looked at here. The first one I looked at, which was kind of a cop-out, is the state of Vermont with Republican Governor Phil Scott. If he runs for re-election, Phil Scott would probably win this race by over 15 points, a safe Republican margin. But if Phil Scott, who's I believe been governor for a very long time in Vermont for a while now, because Vermont does every 2-year terms. Yeah, he was governor in 2018. I think he got elected in 2016. So if he decided he wanted to not run for re-election and wanted to hang it up, that would be almost a guaranteed safe Democratic flip. But I'm not sure if he's going to run for re-election or not. He's not publicly stated if he will. So I decided to leave Vermont off of this list. There are 2 other governor's races with Republican incumbents running that I considered talking about, and that was Texas and New Hampshire. But I think both Greg Abbott in Texas and Kelly Ayotte in New Hampshire have strong enough approval ratings that even in the Democratic midterm, the elections may be competitive. They may fall under 5 points, but I ultimately don't think either one of them will, and I think they hold on and win re-election. Florida, it's possible that Byron Donalds and David Jolly becomes competitive, but again, kind of for similar reasons. I think Florida's a little too much red at this point for that one to truly get really competitive, so I left Florida off. So for the state that I think is the Democrats' 5th most likely opportunity to flip from red to blue is the state of Alaska. Alaska is interesting this time around for 2026 because we've been talking about the Senate race a lot with Mary Peltola, the former U.S. representative, running for that Senate seat. But the governor's race on Alaska side may also be pretty competitive. This is an open race with Republican incumbent Mike Dunleavy, term limited, and cannot seek a 3rd term. Now, there are a lot of candidates running for governor in Alaska, and Alaska sort of does the governor elections different than a lot of other states. I believe all the candidates running the top 4 advance for the general election, and then the general election happens. If no candidate breaks 50%, which they probably won't, then they go to ranked choice voting, and that decides the top 2 and who wins that governor's race. So for the Republicans that are running, there are a lot of Republicans: Click Bishop, Dave Bronson, Nancy Dahlstrom, the lieutenant governor of Alaska, and I believe Bernadette Wilson, a waste management company founder. Right now, the Republican primary is completely wide open. On the Democratic side, Tom Begich, the former minority leader of the Alaska Senate, really has his Democratic primary essentially locked up, with Mary Peltola not running and running for U.S. Senate. And again, I do think Mary Peltola running for Senate is giving the Democrats a lot more optimism and potential at flipping this race. The primary polling thus far, the most recent poll came from February 5th through 11th from Lake Research Partners, and it shows that Tom Begich is at 22%, Bernadette Wilson is at 14%. Now, the prediction rankings on this one don't really buy into this being too competitive. Solid Republican from Cook Politico and Inside Elections. Sablo Crystal Ball has it likely Republican. But Race to the White House has it as tilt for the Republicans. A little bit of a possibility that the Democrats may be able to make this one very close. In the only general election poll for Tom Begich versus Click Bishop versus Dave Bronson versus Bernadette Wilson, Begich is at 38%, Wilson's at 16%, with 25% undecided. Just to show you when Peltola was considering a run, what the ranked choice voting process would essentially look like, you could see it ended up being something like this, where Peltola narrowly edged out Nancy Dahlstrom here. As for the general elections for race to the White House, it's listed, as I mentioned, as tilt Republican. Bernadette Wilson won 66.9% of the time, Tom Begich 33.1%, but the final margin Bernadette Wilson was projected by was only 3.8% Republican, a lean Republican ranking. So as lean Republican, it's in the realm of possibility that Alaska could be very close, and if Peltola pulls off the upset in the Senate race in 2026 against Dan Sullivan, it's possible if she brings out enough Democrats to vote for her, there may be just enough at the end of the day. The Democrats can narrowly flip the governor's race as well and pull off a very big upset in Alaska at both the Senate and governor level. I think that one might be reaching a little bit. I think the Senate race is more likely to go blue than the governor's race. But on this map, including Texas, Florida, Vermont, and New Hampshire, I think Alaska of that group is more likely to flip to the Democrats and be their 5th flip as of today than, say, Texas or New Hampshire would. With Vermont and Florida at this current point in time, I'm not really considering too much. So with that said, in this video for governor, of the 5 governor seats that I think are most likely to flip from red to blue, from Republican to Democrat, I have Georgia, Nevada, Ohio, Iowa, and Alaska. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave your thoughts down below. What do you think the Democrats' most likely flips are for the 2026 governor's map? I will be doing a video in the next few days on the most likely seats I think are going to flip for the Republicans, or I think could flip for the Republicans, like this one, but the inverse. So make sure to keep an eye out for that one if you enjoyed this video as well. For now, thank you so much for watching. Again, please remember to hit like and subscribe, as that really does help my channel out, and I hope to see you in a future video.